What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. It's Friday. I'm Rockin Robbie. This is Rex. That means it's time for the Rex and Robbie show. What is up, Rex?
What's going on, Robbie? I'm glad you got my email, so that we were sure to dress alike.
Yeah, the red shirt day. We're not going on any away missions.
Because they never come back. Ensign Smith.
Yes, exactly.
But believe it or not, Robbie and I did not actually call each other. Great minds just think alike, I guess. Or
yes.
Mediocre minds think alike, whichever.
I don't know. I think we could be near great minds, surely, right?
Surely. Near great, sort of great. We can see great from here. I don't know.
Yeah, that's up in the air. We'll see about that one. But super excited to be here.
Chime in.
What's that?
I said we'll let the viewers chime in.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, right.
See what they think.
On today's show, we'll be talking about a few subjects, but mostly the main topic will be reflecting on 22 years of Joe Quesada over at Marvel. He just recently resigned from his position. His current last position was Executive Vice President and Creative Director, and that happened a little bit. We'll be getting into that, but first of all, just Rex, how's it been going, man? This week's been crazy. We got the Celtics up on the Warriors. We got the Yankees dominating, and we got Miss Marvel.
I did not see that one coming. I really did not see. I did not think that. I got to give the Celtics all the credit in the world, man. They have had a tremendous season. Have certainly performed beyond anyone's expectations for most of the basketball world out there. Maybe except for Celtics fans, obviously. I come from that era where it was always in the East, the Sixers. Hey, BJ, what's going on? The Sixers, the Celtics, the Bucks, battling for the East, and then, obviously facing, as usual, the Lakers, the Kareem days, and, so on and so forth. So I always have kind of I don't know. I don't want to call it hatred, but I just don't like the Celtics very much. It's like, I don't know why that rivalry, the Larry Bird, Julius Erving, the infamous fight. Yeah. So for me, it's very hard to root for the Celtics. The Warriors, I'm very ambivalent about, because during that era, the Warriors were like bad. I mean, super bad, like stink up the stadium sort of bad.
Yeah.
So to see them have this kind of success, and how can you not love Steph Curry? I mean, you gotta love him.
It's kind of impossible not to like him, honestly.
Draining threes all over the place. I read an article the other day about how he's such a great teammate, very humble. In the days of Kyrie Irving and all this nonsense and the super teams, and even Durant to a certain degree, it's nice to know that you've got this humble guy who's obviously lighting it up. And I got to tell you, I don't think Steph Curry gets the credit that he really, really deserves. If you will. I mean, the guy is just, the no-look threes and just, sniping everybody everywhere. I mean, there's like nowhere on the court the guy can't drain a three. It's scary.
Yeah, you've seen those videos of him doing it from like the stands and stuff like that. Oh, just practicing like half-court shots.
It's nuts, and he's not the guy. He's a small frame, rather skinny guy, not particularly tall. So you love to see that. That was why I always loved Allen Iverson, just, 5'11" on a good day, maybe. But the guy was in there battling it, in the paint with the likes of Shaq and all these big guys. And the man was fearless. So, so for me, I'm a big Steph Curry fan. So I like to see the Warriors take it, but more or less, I'm just, I'm still wallowing in my pool of tears over the Sixers and their poor performance. And obviously in this town, there's the James Harden conversation that will go on, for the entire offseason, obviously. Yeah. Obviously, bring him back, don't bring him back. Is he the pressure guy? Who knows?
Absolutely. What's up, Chill Out Man? What's up, BJ? Thank you all for joining us in the chat. I, of course, do not like the Celtics either.
For obvious reasons.
And so I don't necessarily want to see them win, but I don't necessarily like the Warriors, and so I don't know. But it's been crazy what's been going on there. So Miss Marvel came out this week. We actually did a Miss Marvel episode review and discussion live on the channel Wednesday night. We're going to continue doing that late, pretty much. Like, I think we started at, I want to say it was 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern.
Right.
And we give everybody time to watch it, and we talk about it in detail. But all of us on the panel, and we're all like, we're all like men in our 30s and 40s. Not who this show is geared towards at all, right? But we all rather enjoyed it. Now, I know that you didn't watch it yet, Rex. I did enjoy it. I thought it was really solid. One of Marvel's first, like one of their best first episodes that they've done. But you wanted to touch on a little bit of a topic that apparently was going on, where I saw that on IMDb, it seemed like it was getting review bombed or something like that. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I haven't seen the first episode. I've talked to, people that I know like yourself and Alec and personal friends who have watched it, and everybody has had a very positive impression. They do acknowledge that it is skewing towards a younger audience, which I think was the plan anyway.
Oh, for sure.
So, but yeah, I read the same thing you read. It's gotten really good Rotten Tomato scores, but on IMDb, they're suspected kind of review bombing, and it seems like that, reading into it, at the risk of being controversial, reading into it, it looks like that Captain Marvel experienced the same thing, Eternals experienced the same thing, although Eternals is kind of on the cusp. It could just be because it wasn't a very good movie.
Could just be legitimate. Those could just be legitimate reviews.
Right, exactly. They could be, it's not good. It's, I guess whenever you do something that's outside of the traditional or the expected line, you sort of get that. Listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and to me, it's always a very simple thing. And if you don't like something, don't watch it, Morbius, I'm probably going to wait until it absolutely is streaming before I watch it.
Bro, how weird.
I literally have exhausted any other possible thing that I have watched. I may even rewatch something to avoid watching.
You may rewatch Eternals. You don't even know, right? How weird that they brought. How weird is it? They brought Morbius back for a weekend because it was trending because of that Morbin Time meme or whatever. So they brought it back for the weekend. They made like $80,000 or something.
Right. I know. I just, that was horrifically bad. I mean, it was really horrifically bad. Perry Comics, Cerebros, Gus, what's going on, guys?
What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining us. Perry says, I don't know, hate watches are pretty fun. If you got time for that, but Perry's still 29, so we still got time for that.
So, I mean, I am going to watch it tonight. I tried to, just long day yesterday, and I got home and yesterday and Wednesday, and I managed to catch up on Obi-Wan. And was planning to watch Miss Marvel right after that, but I ended up falling asleep on the couch, so that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But there's so much out. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, with the Miss Marvel thing, if it was being review bombed, doesn't it seem like it would be like review bombed on all these different platforms? But like, I don't know if they've changed policies or whatnot, but it's like, why choose IMDb? Like, does anybody go on IMDb to be like, what's this movie rated? What I'm saying?
Sometimes when you want to see the cast of a movie and you can't remember, I'll go on IMDb because that's the first thing that comes up when I do the Google search. Yeah. But Josh, what's going on, buddy? Thanks for joining us, man. Let's see. Good. That's good to know.
Yeah, I was incredible. I thought, what's her name? Amon.
Really good too.
Yeah, Amon for whatever her name is was, I thought, very charming. And apparently this is her first major role in something. So very impressive.
I've heard that as well. Yeah, that they thought the actress was quite good.
And here's the weird thing. When she's wearing the costume that she's wearing towards the end of the show, which is not the final costume yet, but it's amazing. They actually put her in like a real suit. Like they didn't like CG anything with it. It was so weird. I don't know, man.
Maybe because of all that blowback they got on She-Hulk.
And Moon Knight, right? Like, come on.
Yeah. But I'm happy to hear that the actress is good, because overall everybody I've talked to has said that. And we know how important that is, how much it can actually even save a series. I mean, I got to be honest, without Oscar Isaac, what's Moon Knight?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we talked about it through that season of Moon Knight. Obviously, you were horrified by the poor CG of the cape. I remember that. You couldn't get past that one.
Still can't.
it was always marginal for me. I thought the last few episodes were better. Whatever. But what I kept tuning back in for was Oscar Isaac. He had done such a phenomenal job that it was worth watching just to watch him, play the role, or multiple roles as the case may be. So, so for me, it's acting can make or break something.
Yeah.
So that's good to see. So I'm glad to hear that. That's good to see. Let's see.
BJ had a quick question. How DC events are better than Marvel events? Like, how are DC events better than Marvel events? Well, that's obviously subjective. Most people would probably say they like Marvel events better. Things like Infinity Gauntlet, Secret Wars, stuff like that. Civil War, Secret Invasion. With DC, of course, it's like a crisis every other year. And me personally, I like the DC events a little bit more, but I feel like Marvel lately, their events just kind of almost come out of nowhere, and they don't really feel like they're organically going into a direction to lead into an event sometimes. And sometimes they're just taking basically like what should have been the end of, say, just a solid Daredevil run, and they stretch it into an event called Devil's Reign that kind of falls flat for people just kind of jumping in. Right. DC, though, I think a lot of DC fans, we're just geared up to always be looking for clues that are going to lead us to the next crisis or the next event, something like that. So I don't know, right? But right now, I think I'm way more pumped for Dark Crisis than I am this Avengers X-Men Eternals Judgment Day. But that's also because I'm not enjoying the Avengers comics. I'm not enjoying the X-Men comics. And I don't care about the Eternals anymore. Like, if it ain't Jack Kirby. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. That's just me, though.
No, I mean, which brings us to the main topic of the show is I think that with DC events, you have kind of a more independent kind of storytelling. And with Marvel, especially, which brings us to Joe Quesada, retiring or resigning, whatever you want to call it. Marvel, I guess it's plus and minus. Marvel has more continuity between the MCU and the comics and everything else, and why Kevin Feige became the chief creative officer. So there's more of a continuity, a top-down sort of control over it, whereas DC is a little bit more freewheeling. So the downside, I think, is that's why your DC crisis events, you find them more enjoyable than the Marvel ones. But then on the flip side of that coin, obviously MCU is far more popular than DC Universe because that seems kind of all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So it's good and bad, I think. So I think what's interesting is that DC obviously made an announcement after the merger that they want to move in that direction, that more MCU, Kevin Feige, one guy at the top kind of controlling everything that or has, input into everything that branches out from it. So I'm interested to see how that's going to affect the actual comic book titles that DC puts out and the events. When you have to adhere to a certain universe and the continuity of that universe, how does that change, your story writing? It's got to change it to some degree, right?
Yeah. They are giving us foil covers. Unfortunately, they are incentives. That's the drawback there. So we're still getting them, but they cost a lot more money, which that kind of sucks. But it does kind of lead us into the main topic, and that's Joe Quesada. He resigned as his executive vice president, creative director. That's what he was. Real quick, if you're not familiar, Joe Quesada, I probably became known at the same time I started knowing him, which was Ninjak over at Valiant and doing great covers for Valiant. Like the Exo Manowar cover, I believe, was him, right? I think he won a Diamond Gem Award for that cover that year. But obviously also work at Marvel. He did X Factor for a long time there, right. With Peter David, I believe. And then they started Event Comics. Him and Jimmy Palmiotti created Ash, and they were doing Event Comics. They appeared as themselves, I guess, in Chasing Amy. Joe Quesada maintains a relationship with Kevin Smith, obviously. In 1998, Marvel was in a very sad situation. They were coming off of bankruptcy. They were not selling a lot of books. There were a lot of problems, right? And they bring in Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti to start Marvel Knights. So they basically gave 4 titles to Event Comics. But Joe says that they wanted Marvel, because of the state of Marvel at that time, he didn't want people to have a negative reaction to him coming in and
Right.
doing this. So they technically, Event Comics produced these books for Marvel, and Marvel distributed them, right, or put them out, right. But they had a wing at Marvel headquarters, so they made sure that Jimmy and Joe wanted to make sure that they were there every day with everybody else in the grind doing it, because as he said in his letter that he sent out to fans and everybody else announcing his resignation, he said that in those early days it was like selling ships or selling tickets to the Titanic as it's sinking, right? Because it was pretty bad. So he starts Marvel Knights along with Jimmy. They bring in Kevin Smith. They do a Daredevil run. David Mack, the formation of Echo. They bring in Bendis. They do all that. They bring Christopher Priest on Black Panther, Jay Lee, and Paul Jenkins on Inhumans. They bring in Bernie Wrightson to do a not so fondly remembered Punisher series, but then they very quickly course correct and bring in Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon. And then it was 2 years later when Bob Harris, who was the editor-in-chief during all of that rubbish that Marvel was doing in the 90s, right? Like in the late 90s when they were going through bankruptcy, he steps down. Joey Q gets moved up to editor-in-chief. At the time, I was always on board. I thought Marvel Knights was the coolest stuff. It was way better than anything else Marvel was mostly doing. I really liked the Busiek and Perez Avengers run, but for the most part, like, I was into that. He brought this indie feel to Marvel, and when he took over as editor-in-chief, that went line wide. You're bringing in Grant Morrison to do the X-Men. You're bringing in Mike Allred and Peter Milligan to do X-Force. Like, nobody would ever have thought of that, it seems, right? And in the early 2000s, even though it was really dire as far as sales and as far as cultural impact, he put Marvel in a direction that led to a boom in growth and a lot of successes that went along with these movies, including, like, for a while there with Bendis and Mark Millar kind of guiding the direction of Marvel. They really rose, with the Civil War and the Secret Invasion, Dark Reign, Siege, all this kind of stuff, right? And then he has so many responsibilities when he becomes chief creative officer that he has to step down from editor-in-chief. That goes to Axel Alonso. And then recently in 2019, they restructured. Kevin Feige is now chief creative officer across Marvel Studios and Marvel Entertainment now. And apparently the synergy wasn't there. So it was expected that certain people at that top level would start stepping down or something like that. So it seemed like the writing was on the wall that Joe was going to step down at some point, but he has, and he's gone off. He's wanting to do creator-owned stuff again. I hope we get more artwork from him because I think he's a fantastic artist. He'll definitely have maybe a little bit more time to do that. I wouldn't worry about Joe. I think he's made plenty of money.
Yeah, I think Joe's going to be fine.
I think he'll be fine.
I don't think Joe's going to be homeless or anything like that anytime soon.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody's taking Quesada's place because the role that he had was kind of made for him when they gave
after Feige took over.
Exactly. So
yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts of the whole? Because overall, I think we will think of Joe Quesada's tenure at Marvel the way we think of Jim Shooter and Stan Lee. Like, it is one of those big, impactful, important Marvel zones.
I think Stan Lee is Stan Lee, and there really is no one that Stan Lee is unique in the sense that he went through the good times, the bad times, the good times again. He's defined as what is at the core, or the, if you want to call it, the creator of Marvel Comics, if you will. I mean, granted, there's a lot of people that can disagree about the specifics of that, but ultimately it's his face that we associate with Marvel. Jim Shooter obviously was very prominent, but I think Joe Quesada has a very unique role. He came in a time when Marvel was owned by Revlon, which, granted, it was a time of big venture capitalists going out and just buying chunks and chunks of companies here and there that have no relation to each other. And so it was a thing, but clearly that was a brutal time. I mean, what in the world is a cosmetics company going to do with what is back then, especially a male dominated kind of industry? How are you bringing these two things together? And clearly it didn't work. Nobody at the executive levels of Revlon had any idea what to do with the comics. They might know what shade of concealer you need, or lipstick, or whatever, eyeliner, whatever. But what would they know about what people want to read in terms of comics? So that was obviously something that was never going to last very long, and they were losing money hand over fist. And Quesada represented the beginning of that Marvel turnaround. And at first we're all thinking, well, it can't be that hard to turn around because you're really at the bottom of the barrel right now.
Right.
Just any kind of improvement is like going to be an improvement over what's going on. But now, 22 years later, you have to look back and see what he was handed and where it is today. And listen, I give Kevin Feige all the credit in the world. Okay, that a lot of what he saw and did was visionary. Okay, to bring the MCU to that next level. But it took Joe Quesada to bring legitimacy back to Marvel Comics, and then to kind of mentor its growth period into where movies became connected to comics. It wasn't, back in those days, what do we have? We had the Christopher Reeve Superman. We had the Michael Keaton Batman. We finally had the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. It was no guarantee.
Yeah.
And I think Hollywood looked at it, well, if it's not Superman, it's not Batman, it's not Spider-Man, I don't think so. Okay. Obviously then Blade, Wesley Snipes and Blade and everything, and it slowly grew its way into what it is today. And today, I mean, every other movie that comes out is it seems like is an MCU movie or series or whatever. I mean, think about it.
Most of the stories that they mine come from that Joe Quesada era, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they do, like they go back to that. We got a Secret Invasion thing coming out, right? So he comes in, and the first thing he does that I think his biggest credit is that he's a draw for talent back to Marvel, right?
Yeah.
That was a big deal. I remember him saying, I remember reading this back in the day, it must have been in a Wizard or something, right? And he was saying it was astounding to him that when the X-Men movie came out, they were producing like just kind of drivel X-Men books that weren't captivating people, kind of retreading the same stuff. He goes, this makes no sense because the movie, if people go see this X-Men movie, they come into the comic shop, it's going to be way too hard for them to get in, right?
Right.
And so he's like, let's revamp it. And he brought in Grant Morrison, Joe Casey. They came in, they regardless of what people think about those runs nowadays, which I really like that era for X-Men. It's one of my favorites, but it worked. It brought people back in. They wanted to know why the X-Men were in like this black leather with this like Dayglow yellow. And they wanted to know what was going on with that. And it brought interest in, and it led, he's influential, majorly influential in the rise of the Ultimate line. And because of Mark Millar and Brian Hitch on the Ultimates, that is pretty much was the formation of the ideas that would lead to the MCU's Avengers. Like they went that route. We have Samuel L. Jackson because of that book, right? As Nick Fury, because that's how they drew him. So his influence, not just on the comic side, but how they would be able to mine these stories for successful films in the years forward. Like it's astounding to me.
I think what Joe Quesada recognized was that, okay, you have a successful movie, right, based on a comic book title. Then everybody in Hollywood's like, let's make another one. But you're always going to be a couple of years out. So what I think he capitalized on was he realized that, okay, well, you have your comic book fans, right? So they're all going to watch the movie. That's a given. Okay, they're already X-Men fans, and they, oh my gosh, there's a live action movie, I got to go see it. They may come out of it and say it was awful. It wasn't like this. It's not true to the canon, whatever. But they're still going to watch it. The trick was to get that person that goes and watches an X-Men movie that doesn't necessarily read certainly the X-Men titles or comics, but he recognized that there is always going to be a percentage that are going to come out of the movie going, wow, that was fantastic. I love the storyline. I want more. Okay. But if you make them wait 2 years, you're going to lose them.
Yeah.
People are going to move on to other interests. And he found, I think he recognized that, you know what, you need to put the title back out there. It needs to be engaging. The storyline has to work. It has to kind of work in conjunction with the movie. So those people that watch the movie and want more can turn to comics to get their more until the next movie comes out 2 years down the road. And I think that was important. And I think that's a formula that now, you know, the MCU is refined to a point where, you know, I'm not saying they always get it right, a la Eternals, but it is, you know, it is something now that where the two worlds are kind of connected. The movies, the MCU movies, it's TV series, and then the comics, and that you can build by combining the two. And I think Joe Quesada was probably one of the first to really recognize that.
Yeah, and another thing that he did early on was that he stopped the overprinting policy that they were doing, where they wouldn't overprint on orders. He didn't really like they had just recently redone everything with the new issue #1. He didn't like that. He brought back in legacy numbering. He instituted a dead is dead policy. Like if you kill somebody, be sure that you want them to be gone for a while, because he got tired of the endless resurrections, and obviously that didn't stick, right? But it was utilized way less in those days. When Jean Grey died at the end of the Morrison run, she stayed dead in the comics for a long time, right, for instance. And fandom was into him, and he was able to bring this personality with his like Cup of Joe bits and stuff that I don't like. Jim Shooter never did that. Like that, he didn't have that Stan Lee ability to like be a character and a promoter for the company.
Yeah.
But Joe did. Joe was able to do that. He was able to get out there, kind of like a Dan Dio did the same type thing. He was out there taking the hits, making the decisions, promoting and pumping up, and basically being the greatest hype man that Marvel had at that time. And then, you know, fans really liked him. And I remember when the shift happened was Spider-Man One More Day, where it was found out that Joe Quesada was the one who did not like the Peter Parker, Mary Jane marriage. And he instituted that was going to go away, and the One More Day story. And that still stands today, and a lot of people still are kind of upset about that. So I remember when that happened. That's when the slow turn away from him kind of started by some portions of the community, because they really liked the Spider-Man marriage. But I get what he was saying too. He was like, when did Spider-Man sell the best? When did it work the best? When it wasn't about, like, he's like, if you want kids or you want young people to read these books, having Spider-Man deal with marriage problems probably is not the right way to go about it. But,
exactly. Yeah. I think Josh Wendt brings up an interesting point. The concept of using nothing but house creators versus hiring, the best talent from the indies. I think that's very important, because I think, that's a great point, Josh, because that was the fundamental change when they hired Joe Quesada, I think. Because if you look at Quesada's history, he was with Valiant. He was part of that era when they just, the Image broke out, Valiant. I mean, there were just tons, Defiant. There were just tons and tons of indie publishers that were coming out. And, these popular artists, we had talked about this on a previous show, one of your previous shows, about how that period was really a change, a fundamental change in how the creators became more notable than they were in the past. Not just, somebody in the bullpen, never seen, never heard from, the only person anybody ever heard from was Stan Lee. So I think that Joe Quesada came in with that philosophy, knowing that, hey, we don't just have to work with people that we hire. There's other talent out there that we can bring on board that would do to enhance, a title. So he took advantage of that the fact that creators started to make a name for themselves, and he used a combination of, hey, we're getting this so-and-so creator on so-and-so title, and found a way to use both of those aspects to make the most of it. And, so I think he was in the right place at the right time, and given his history coming up in the industry, he kind of knew these things and was part of that fundamental shift the way comics were done prior to that. And that's why, he had a lot of new innovative ideas that obviously, you look at Marvel today, far cry from bankruptcy and being owned by Revlon. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. How will this impact Marvel going forward? What do you think, Rex? I think we've already seen that shift. Like, I think that in 2019, I think his involvement kind of he went more into the background, and I think we've already seen that shift with more of this top down, like you were talking about,
Yeah.
direction from Feige and Disney now. But that's
Yeah,
what I
I would
think.
agree with you. I think the shift would have even happened faster, and all of this may have happened faster if it wasn't for the pandemic. That obviously put a kind of a slow lane into everything. But yeah, I agree with you. By 2019, I think that shift already happened. I think it was cool that Marvel, out of respect, for all that Joe Quesada had done for the company, they didn't just say, "Well, you're out, Kevin Feige's in." They created a role for him there, and I got to imagine that it's probably less engaging, this role that he has, vice president, of creative or whatever, was less engaging with Kevin Feige now in the role. So I think it was inevitable that he was going to say, you know what, I'm going to leave. I'm going to start working on my own stuff again, and that type of thing. It's probably pretty boring,
Yeah.
at the Marvel offices now for him for the last couple of years probably. So yeah, I agree with you. I think the shift already happened. Whatever's going to happen, we're already seeing it. I remember you used to see, Quesada's name all over the place, in terms of the movies, and then that shifted, and became Feige's name all over the place. So it's been a slow process. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So overall, I mean, I think the legacy is strong, and it seems like Rex is in agreement. I think that he is going to be remembered as one of the best editor in chiefs Marvel has ever had. I 100% think that. BJ had a quick question I saw. He said, if you had a chance to trade any comic book characters, which one would it be and why? Like from DC to Marvel or something like that. Man, I'll tell you what, I would love to see Doctor Doom in the DC universe because he would wreck him. He would wreck him. Like Superman wouldn't know what to do, man, because he's got magic powers. Doom does, man. Right? Come on. What do you got, Rex? You got one you'd like to see switch over?
I've never really thought of it that way. I guess I would like to see and I don't think it's ever been done. I'd like to see the ultimate battle between Aquaman and Namor. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, because the one we get in the
But
Marvel
that's more
versus
crossover. It's not switching anybody out. I mean,
yeah,
I got to tell you, I don't have an answer because I've never really thought of it that way.
yeah. Namor and Aquaman fought briefly in the DC versus Marvel stuff from the 90s, and
Okay.
Aquaman wins because, and this is the dumbest thing, it's so stupid.
Because he can talk to the fish?
Yeah, he telepathically summons a killer whale, and it jumps up and lands on Namor, and that's how he beats him.
Yeah, that is pretty stupid.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, that's pretty goofy. I mean, the potential there, oh my gosh. But yeah, so I've never really thought of it that way. Of crossing one over to the other. I guess. I've thought about crossover battles between characters, but never one leaving one universe and another going to that universe. From that perspective.
Absolutely.
But
all right. Well, I do encourage everybody to comment below especially if you weren't able to participate in the live show. Comment below any of your thoughts on this. You're entered to win a contest. That winner will be announced on Monday's show over at The Experience. And links in the description below for that. Me and Rex do a show every Monday night with our buddy John over at The Experience, 6 p.m. Eastern time. We go for 2 hours. They got great stuff, CGC slabs. I forgot to set up the giveaway, Rex. So why don't you tell everybody about the show on Monday while I set that up?
So we have Robbie on the air with us on our The Experience channel from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. We do it every Monday night. Robbie joins us. My friend John joins us as well. We talk about anything under the sun. We'll probably talk about some of the stuff we talked about for this show. And we have slab comics, usually 9.8, certainly no lower than a 9.6 unless it's vintage. Great signed comics by Alex Ross, Dan Jurgens, John Romita Sr., and a host of others. And we have these tremendous cover sketches from Ken Hazer and a bunch of other artists, usually in color. They're just phenomenal. I'm a huge Ken Hazer fan, as Robbie will tell you. And I think we've converted Robbie as well.
You have.
And then general comic talk, and it's a good time. It's just three guys hanging out with the viewers and talking about whatever comes to mind.
Yes, and all you have to do to enter the contest is to comment on this video or participated in the chat, of course. And then we do the same thing on Monday night. If you're part of the chat there, we draw a winner today. So we're drawing a winner from Monday's show. So Rex,
All
what is
right. And
what's the prize?
The prize will be a Red Sonja 45th anniversary exclusive card. All right.
Nice.
And whoever is the winner from the chat on Monday night show will be the winner.
All right. So I got it loaded up. Clicking the button. Sean Butler is the winner.
Sean Butler is the winner. Awesome. Very, very good.
Heck yeah. Congratulations. I have not seen a Fantastic Four short box by NECA. I don't even know what you're talking about there, Gus. Like a comic book short box? Is that what you're talking about? By NECA?
No, NECA usually makes the
figures, right?
Figures, yeah.
Yeah, because I got several of I love their horror figures. Like, in particular, they're so freaking cool. Yeah. The Breast Stories, and Marvel has this guy's name on it. I can, yeah, I'm down with that. I should have pulled it out. It's over there on the bookcase, but I was in Wizard World in 2002 in Chicago, and Joe was there, and I didn't realize Joe Quesada was going to be there. So I didn't bring anything that he had, right? Like, because at that time I would have brought my Kevin Smith Quesada Daredevils, right? But Jeff Loeb was supposed to be there. He wound up canceling. So I had my Daredevil yellow hardcover. So I just got Joe to sign that one. So, I mean, he was the editor.
Whatever's handy.
What's that?
Whatever's handy.
Yeah, whatever's handy. I was like, well, at least I'll still get it signed. So there you go. All right, everybody. We hope to see you Monday night on The Experience. It's always a good show there. Join us tomorrow night for Dylan's Horror Show. We're talking about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. And then after Monday night's show on The Experience, an hour after that, actually, join us as we review Dr. Sleep for PCP Movie Night. And original art show tonight, Rex?
Yes, 7 to 8 on The Experience. Nick will be on the air with some great original art. So even if you're not into buying original art, tune in. It's great. He has some great stories usually about the particular piece of art that he's featuring on the show, because a lot of the stuff comes from his personal collection.
Heck yeah. Always a cool show. Always lots of great opportunity to pick up original art there. So Rex, thanks for joining us today.
You got it, buddy. Have a great weekend. I will see you Monday as usual.
Absolutely. And you out there in the chat, thank you so much. And watching on the replay, comment below, enter to win that contest, because there's going to be a great prize on Monday. And we'll announce that, of course, on Monday.